Now I'm very excited to welcome back a man who just cannot get enough college basketball in Greg Hoops Peterson from Peterson and the Coast to Coast Hoops podcast. You can follow Greg on X at gunit_81. Here we are, Greg, my man, knee deep in conference play. How the heck you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good, my friend. But a few up and downs the last few days. I'm sure that you experienced a lot of that in betting where one day you're having an amazing day, one day you're down, and then you're back up, and then you're back down. But those are the emotions, the swings of college basketball, and it's all about figuring it out, being able to make some profit long term. And I know you do a great job of that, my friend. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, absolutely, man. The ebbs and flows in college basketball is crazy, and I'll tell you, it's not for the faint of heart because if you don't like bad beats, you should not be betting college basketball because that is a sport that's going to get you a lot when it comes to bad beats. But we love it, and here we are. Real excited to have you on, man. And the first question I have for you is I'm going to give you a layup here. I'm going to give you a layup. What is the strongest conference in college basketball?
Oh, that is certainly the Southland. No, I'm kidding. It's, of course, the SEC. It's been incredible what we've seen. Every single one of those 16 teams won 10 plus non-conference games, albeit some of the schedules were harder than others. But to have all 16 teams in a conference win 10 plus non-conference games, and even if you do have a little bit of an easier schedule, I mean, just ask the ACC about bad losses. Just ask some of these teams out there nationwide about how hard it is to just be able to get the job done night in, night out. It's been incredible what we've seen from the SEC, and thus far, those top SEC teams have certainly looked like that thus far this season.
Absolutely. And, I'm a Big Ten fan, and I have to tip my hat to the SEC too. But, hey, they had a really down year in football, so maybe this is the year that they can do it in basketball. I mean, how many Final Four teams can you see coming out of this conference?
Well, certainly Auburn is the biggest contender that you've got, in my opinion. Even with the injury to Gianni Broome, he's going to be back by the time NCAA tournament play is there. So, I mean, I look at them. Certainly, Tennessee is a team that is really growing on me as well. They play such good defense. Florida, Alabama are teams that are all right there as well. And you just look up and down the boulevard at the team. Like, would you be overly surprised if Ole Miss is able to make a run in the NCAA tournament? If Mississippi State is able to make a run in the NCAA tournament? I say that both of those teams certainly could. So, I mean, I could certainly see a Final Four where you've got like 2 or 3 teams from the SEC. Question is, what is going to be the draw of those teams? Because you've got the potential of, I would say, 6+ teams having the chops to be able to make that run to the Final Four.
Yeah, and I even asked, I even tweeted out to Circa over there, Jeff Benson and Mike Paul, who have both been on this show, asking them to make me a prop. I want a conference prop, like at least one team or at least 2 teams, at least 3 teams of these conferences making the Final Four. They said, talk to me after Selection Sunday is what they told me, Kevin. I'm like, I want it now, man. I want to bet that right now. That sounds like a fun prop to have. But I think I would not shock me if there was 2 teams from the SEC in it, and maybe they even get 3 and shock the world. That'd be really interesting and really fun come NCAA tournament time. But hey, we're both from Wisconsin. We love the Badgers. We are big Badger fans, and you're a Green Bay guy, but same thing. Let's talk about the Badgers real quick. They're ranked pretty high. I'm not sure if they're overrated or underrated, but I would say that they do need a few places to improve. What spot of team basketball do the Badgers need to improve the most to get as far as possible in March?
It's been so interesting to watch this Badgers team because the one thing that I could say for them, they're doing the little things well. They're the number 1 team in all of college basketball in terms of free throw shooting percentage, and they've really done a good job of being able to guard the 3-point arc when they've been away from home. I would say that the rebounding could be a little bit hit or miss with regards to this team. You've had Nolan Winter be able to supply the team with about 6 or so rebounds per game, but they're outside the top 100 with regards to that rebound percentage. They sometimes allow a few too many second and third chances. They themselves don't necessarily generate a lot of second and third chances. It's a lot of one and done basketball, for lack of a better term. And then you do notice that this is a Wisconsin team that, despite the fact that they're scoring more points than ever before, it's not necessarily because they went into like some sort of an amazing 3-point mode or anything like that. They're not shooting it the way that they did when they made those Final Four runs with the likes of Frank the Tank Kaminsky and company. So I would say the biggest thing is going to be the rebounding and just continue to do the little things well, not turn the ball over, hit their free throws, which they've done a good job of this far this season.
Oh, absolutely, man. The memories, Frank the Tank, Nigel Hayes, Sam Decker,
Yes.
Bronson Koenig. That was the days, man. I'm hoping to get back there. I think Greg Gard is doing a pretty good job. I've been kind of hot and cold on him, but this year he's doing fantastic. I think their perimeter defense definitely needs some work. Once they face those SEC teams, those big bad guys down low is where Stephen Crowell has kind of tend to flutter a little bit. And I think, once in a while, Greg Gard gets his head out of his you-know-what, and then Crowell plays a little bit better defense and winner there. We need a couple hacker guys out down there, But, that's really the spot I think that's going to take them either in or out of the Sweet 16. So I'm hoping that they build that up a little, Greg.
Yep, me too. And I do think that with this Wisconsin team, if you can get a little bit more of those versatile guys, you were mentioning it with Krull, that is going to be big for them moving forward because been a little bit inconsistent from a season ago. And as we know, John Tonje has been really the main constant for this team this season.
Oh, absolutely. What a diamond in the rough find he was. Didn't even really play last year at Missouri. Obviously from Colorado State before, had a fantastic season a couple years ago. Tanji's been just an amazing pickup, and the Badgers would not be where they are without him. Well, let's move on to the next question, which give me a dark horse, my man. A dark horse to make the NCAA tournament. I don't care if they make some noise, but I want to bet them to make the NCAA tournament. Any team come to mind? Because if you need to think about it for a second, I have one too.
Yep, absolutely. And this is where you look at more of the mid-major teams because I don't think that there's really one of those teams off the beaten path in the power conference where it's like, I think that they're going to rise up like NC State last year. There was no way that we could have seen anything like that coming. Although I will say this Notre Dame team, if they could somehow, some way find a way, and they don't have the at-large resume to do so, they would need to go on some Herculean run to be able to make the NCAA tournament. That's a team that would be interesting. If there's odds on Georgetown, I don't know where they rank in terms of bracketology. They're another team that has come into mind a little bit for me as well. I've actually really liked what I've seen out of this Georgetown team. But in terms of teams that might be more in a mid-major conference that they could be able to rise up and be able to make a run into the NCAA tournament, I would be going with a school that is a little bit more out there in the Missouri Valley Conference because Drake is getting all the love. How about what this Bradley team has done, though? They're right now 15-3. They're shooting it really well from three-point. Top 10 team in all of college basketball with that regard. Brian Wardle, who used to coach over there at UW Green Bay, this is a guy that really has things rolling with this team. They've got good defense. They've got a lot of outside shooting. They've got some size. If they can make it into the NCAA tournament, that's a team I feel like could win a game or two. And then additionally, if you're looking for another team that might be out there in the Mountain West as well, that I think is very interesting, this Boise State Broncos team always plays relatively rock-solid defense. Right now, they're a game out of first place in the Mountain West. And if it wasn't for a very fortunate roll, probably gets that win against Utah State a few days ago.
Yeah, that's very true. That was such a close game. Great nail-biter game on Saturday. So, yeah, Boise State's definitely up there for me. I'm going to go with the UCF Knights. And I just like what they got going on. I like, and maybe they're not such a dark horse, but when you look on KenPom, they're sitting here ranked 73rd. They just traveled to ASU, which is ranked higher than them on KenPom, and they beat them. UCF's got some really good wins non-conference already. That's why I kind of want to bet their future. Texas A&M number 19 on KenPom. Texas Tech they beat as well. So those are two nice resume boosters. Now they're going to go through the Big 12. They're going to have to steal a couple wins. If this number's too big against Houston, I love Houston. Don't get me wrong, but they're playing at home against Houston. I might take a little feeler on the Knights.
Yeah, with Central Florida, they also got that big win to begin the season against Texas A&M as well. Being able to get back Jalen Sellers, I think, is massive as well because he was one of their main guards from a season ago. Without him in the lineup, team was a little bit wobbly. They were trying to find their bearings. Now that he's back, I think that is just so massive for them as well. And I do think that this is going to be a team moving forward that is going to be able to provide a little bit of bang for your buck.
100%. Well, I love it. Let's get into a little buy low, sell high then. And the first team that I'm going to, let's go buy low. I'm going to go USC. And it's hard. I do this every week, so I always try to come up with a new one. You might even pick one I picked before. But I like what USC's been doing lately. And then you have to remember, it's not like they don't have a coach there. It's Eric Musselman there. Eric Musselman, who's been in the top rankings the last, I would say four of the last, at least three of the last 5 years in the NCAA tournament. They certainly made a heck of a lot of noise. And now they're winning with good perimeter play. they are actually also finishing at the rim, which is what I'm starting to like. And they're starting to play as a team. I'm going to even take a look at them this week against our Badgers on Saturday when they're facing off. So I'm going to go a little bit of a buy low on a USC team that is maybe ready to burst out.
And I'll go with Georgetown here because Georgetown, their numbers have just been too short over the last few games. It feels like they might have course corrected for this game on Friday against DePaul. Right now, I'm finding them as more of a 9 to 9.5 point favorite. I think that might be one where it's gone a little bit too far. But this has been a Georgetown team that in these step-up games against the likes of St. John's, what have you, they've been able to do a really good job of being able to hold in there. Recognize that they didn't get the job done against UConn against the spread about a week and a half ago. But this has been a Georgetown team that's been very rock solid defensively. Top 20 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Thomas Sorber has been really good down low for this team. They do have some turnover issues that they do need to correct, but I've been really liking what I've been seeing out of this Georgetown team.
Oh, I can't disagree with you at all there. I love their spot this week facing a DePaul team that came off an overtime heartbreaker against Marquette. Now they have to go on the road after that and face Georgetown, who's hungry for a win after 3 really tough losses in a row against very good teams, St. John's, Marquette, UConn. I mean, those are very forgivable losses here in Georgetown. Absolutely a great buy low team. So I'm on it, and I just wrote it down for this weekend. How about sell high? What do you have for a sell high team that might be a little bit overrated?
Well, if I could have sold UCLA about a week and a half ago, that would have been great because, man, things have absolutely spiraled out of control for them, to say the least. But we've got a few teams that have been very interesting in these mid-major conferences. We just saw a loss for Old Dominion, who started out 4-1 in Sun Belt play. I thought that was a little bit of a flash in the pan, so we'll see what is going to be happening there. You just saw New Mexico State get the job done in Conference USA. Right now, they're actually leading Conference USA, and I don't think that they're as good as a lot of these teams like Louisiana Tech, Western Kentucky. So I think that they're probably going to be a team that gets a little bit overvalued in the next few days. And maybe it's just me, but this Oregon team is just very strange. Like with Oregon, they seem to be getting the job done in a lot of these spots. They're right now 15-2. It feels like they've been sort of doing it with smoke and mirrors. And this has been a team that has been very well coached. Dane Altman, one of the best coaches in all of college basketball. I just don't know if they're quite as good as the way that they played. They don't necessarily have that one true strength. Jackson Shell said relatively good out there in the backcourt, but I could see a little bit of a tumble coming for them in the next few weeks.
Well, that's interesting because we're going to talk about Purdue, Oregon, and I'm actually selling high on Purdue myself. So we're kind of selling high on each 2 Big Ten teams. It's funny about Purdue. I feel like they've had some good fortune themselves. They've won some close games. They've already had a very easy, I would say, Big Ten schedule. They haven't faced a lot of the tough teams yet. And now they have to travel to Oregon, so I'll get into that game. But then you have to keep looking. There's still no Zach Edey there. When they did face some big competition like Auburn, they really got smoked. They lost away at Penn State, away at Marquette. They're 3 away Big Ten teams were from the worst of the Big Ten in Minnesota, Rutgers, and Washington. So they got through those away games. Let's see when they kind of step up a little competition, but we'll get to that game. So it's fine. We're selling high on the same matchup that's coming up this weekend. So I'm excited to get into that game. But why don't we get into a few games here? And I can only project the lines, kind of what I think that's going to happen. The market gives a little bit more home field advantage, and now the odds makers are starting with a little bit more home court, I should say, advantage here. So I'm going to look at Tennessee versus Vanderbilt. I'm going to project Vanderbilt +6, maybe it's +7. I'm okay with that. With a total around 141 for this weekend. And I think that Tennessee's kind of felt that big road loss already, Greg, at Florida. I like how they're healthy. I think they're going to get into this game and not take Vanderbilt for granted. And you know what big teams do when somebody starts entering their territory? Well, they open up a can on them. We were just talking about Haslametrics here and Paper Tiger champions. Well, Vanderbilt's ranked pretty highly up as a Paper Tiger champion. I think that Vanderbilt doesn't have many advantages over Tennessee. They're going to get beaten bad from 3-point land. The Vols are number 1 in perimeter defense, defending the 3 on Haslametrics and on Ken Pom. While Tennessee's also one of the best rebounding teams out there. So I think the Paper Tiger is going to go be put to bed this week. It's weird for me to lay over 3 points on the road, but I'm going to do it. with the vowels, and this 14-3 record is just a little bit too much for the Commodores.
I would actually go opposite. If I'm able to get 7 points, I would be willing to take a shot on Vanderbilt because they don't turn the ball over. Pretty much everyone on the floor is a point guard. I've been loving what I've been seeing out of them. And my first job out of college was actually being a part of the Vanderbilt Commodores official radio station. And this is a big time rivalry. Do not get me wrong. Tennessee is not going to be taking Vanderbilt lightly. This is an interstate rivalry, so this is going to be a big one. And this is also a game that Vanderbilt is going to get up for as well. With Vanderbilt, I think that they're going to be able to do a solid job against a Tennessee team that they can be a little bit hit or miss for themselves from three-point range. And we've seen this Tennessee team sometimes have a few lapses, like when they were down at the half against Middle Tennessee. These teams within the state of Tennessee, these regional teams, have given them quite a bit of a battle. I do think that with Vanderbilt, having what they have in the backcourt, a guy in A.J. Hogarth that does a good job as a floor general, is going to be big for them being able to hold in there. I like what I've seen out of Devin McLaughlin a little bit as well. So I'd be willing to take a 7 there. I set my line at a 4.5, and I would certainly be looking at an under as well because, to your point, Tennessee, very good with their defense.
Yeah, amazing with their defense. A.J. Hogarth, great transfer from Michigan State. So that's where they landed him as a grad transfer. So good stuff on that one. A little bit of disagreement. I love it. That's great. Let's shop around here. Obviously I'm going to be hoping for a 6 or a 5.5, and you're going to be open 7, 7.5 as much as you can get on this game. Well, let's talk about Purdue, Oregon then. Purdue's going to be traveling out there. I project Oregon's going to be a little bit of a favorite. I know the Ken Palms and everything say it's going to be a pick 'em. I just think that Purdue's going to be a little bit of a dog here, about 1.5 to 2 points. I'm going to say 1.5 for now with a total of 48. What do you think about this game?
And we were talking about us selling both on Purdue and Oregon. I made Purdue a 4.5, or I made Oregon a 4.5 point favorite. I'd be willing to take Oregon on that number because with Purdue, I'm right there with you. This is not the same team in terms of their rebounding. Yes, they've been able to shoot it well from three-point range, but also you have to keep in mind, going from West Lafayette, Indiana, all the way out to the great state of Oregon, albeit this isn't going to be like too bad of a body clock game. This isn't like one of those insane 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time tips or anything like that. But still, this is going to be a big-time spot for a Purdue team that they have to match up with a true 7-footer, Nate Biddle. They don't have as much size down low as they have in the past. Certainly, they were able to have a nice second half against Washington, but Washington, in my opinion, are one of the biggest dregs out there in the Big Ten. I do think that Oregon goes out there, gets the job done, and with this Purdue team, you notice that when things go bad for them, they really start to snowball. Like when things are good, things are great. When things are bad, things are awful. There's not a lot of in between, and I think that Oregon, with their coach in Dana Altman, is going to be able to outcoach Matt Painter and Purdue.
Well, I'm totally with you here. I am definitely taking Oregon here. I like them up to 4 or 5 points, in my opinion. I'm hoping I'll be excited if I do get the lower. And it's just like everything I said about Purdue. I believe that they're finally going to get into the tough part of that schedule here. In Oregon, they kind of limp through, like you mentioned, Ohio State. Ohio State just has been a very strange team this year. They limp through Penn State, which Penn State is, I would say slightly overrated. But they also have some pretty good wins, especially early in the season where they beat San Diego State, Alabama, and Texas A&M all in a neutral court, winning that tournament. And then, had a couple of hiccups here and there. Illinois was definitely a hiccup, in my opinion. The UCLA, I was on Oregon back in December 82 against UCLA, and UCLA got them. I think that I was on the fade train, though, last week on UCLA. I kind of sniffed that one out. They were actually last week's sell high team for me. But let's both take Oregon here with the short line. I love it. I think the rebounding and their just consistent play, because there's really no red on any of their numbers, is going to take out Purdue. Little hodgepodge. Let's talk about a few games. It's funny. You got Kansas State and Kansas, and this used to be such a great rivalry. But now Kansas is coming off a loss to Iowa State, and they're going to face Kansas State. I mean, you always look at the dog in Kansas State this game in the past, but man, Kansas is probably going to be a 15 to 16 point favorite in this. How do you get yourself to take Kansas State?
I would need to be getting at the very minimum 16 because I set my number on this 15.5. So between 15 and 16 is exactly right where I landed, because with this Kansas State team, I thought that the point where you were going to be able to get a little bit of value was last week against Houston, when you're hosting a top 10 team, when you're hosting a Houston team that is one of the big bad teams, and you're able to make that statement. And in the octagon of doom, Kansas State was doomed all game long. Albeit they were able to cover here earlier in the week. I believe that was the Texas Tech game, and I did take them in that spot. But for Kansas, what I'm actually looking for is a total, because Kansas has played one game to the over thus far this season.
That's right.
One over and 15 unders. They're actually a better defense, though, when they're on the road rather than at home, very strangely. Like, they have been such a good defense when they've been away from home. Hunter Dickinson should be able to control things down low. So I'm very curious on that total, because I set mine at a 143.5. I think that there's going to be a lot of people are going to be starting to buy into that trend. And I do think that there's going to be becoming a buy spot with regards to these overs on Kansas games. The question is when.
Yes, absolutely. It throws people off a lot, because Kansas's average possession length ranks 55th, but their defensive average possession length is 345th. The tempo is actually a little bit more shaded towards the offensive side, but going through an easier non-conference will do that, and that sometimes pushes these totals up a little bit, Greg. So in this situation, I completely agree with you. Let's look at this under. I'm hoping that we're going to get a total on this, or a high total on this one. And then we can look to the, worst case scenario, maybe Kansas State only scores 50 to 55 points. Very possible against a very tough defense like Kansas. And it is interesting to see it flip. The offensive efficiency for Kansas ranks 45th, and their defensive efficiency ranks 3rd. It's very strange for a Bill Self team. It's funny, you mentioned Mississippi and Mississippi State. Ole Miss, they face off each other this week, man.
Hey.
I'm excited for this game too. And, Ole Miss is coming off a massive win. Once you think they're down, they just come right back up swinging. They beat Alabama on the road, which was just crazy. Alabama's like a 10-point or 11-point favorite in this game. And I'm glad I passed on it. If they hung like a 7, I would have took Alabama and lost this bet. But here we are. It's like the Egg Bowl in a way. But, they're going to Mississippi State, so they're going to be on the road. You probably can get some fans from both sides. What are your thoughts on this game?
This is one where I said Mississippi State as more of a 5.5-point favorite. I do think that the big thing for Mississippi State is the size advantage. It's going to be very key in this game, because this is an Ole Miss team that is under the tutelage of Chris Beard. So they're playing a lot of positionless basketball. They're trying to make sure that they have as many three-point shooters out there as possible, though Malik Dia has been able to do a nice job down low. That said, for Mississippi State, gone are the days of this team being dead last in the country in terms of their three-point shooting percentage. They've been able to find quite a bit with regards to guard play. I've been loving what I've been seeing out of them. Additionally, for Mississippi State, both of these teams, not just Mississippi State, but both of these teams, top 15 teams in all of college basketball in terms of taking care of the ball, fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. Josh Harbert has been able to step up in a big way for his Mississippi State team. So I do think that Mississippi State just a little bit more of a complete team, and I think that this is going to be one of those matchups where Ole Miss struggles on the glass.
Yeah, very possible. Mississippi State ranks 31st in adjusted offensive rebounding, so very good rebounding team, while Ole Miss does not clean up their boards well, only ranking 246. Yeah, you're right. Ole Miss does not turn over the ball. They are very good at stealing the ball as well. This is going to be one of those fun games you got to watch. I might just sit back and be a fan for this one, Greg, and kind of enjoy it. Well, that brings us to beer bet bangers, man. And I don't know if you have one or not. It's just a situation where maybe you like some plus money on a side. Maybe you like a conference winner. Maybe you like somebody to make the Final Four or even win it all. But throwing some beer money on it, because you and I are both from Wisconsin. I watch all of your beer tweets out there, and I do enjoy them, and I comment them every once in a while. Any plus money long shots that you might like?
Well, in terms of the games for Friday, I do actually like St. Joe's on the money line. That's going to be one that I'm going to be placing. That's not necessarily a big giant like plus $5 bet or anything like that, but that is a little bit of plus money if you're looking for Friday. And then if I were to look at the futures market, and truth be told, I've got a completely clean futures portfolio right now just because I want to see the matchups. I think that this is going to be one of those years that's going to be very matchup dependent, but a team that I just still think is going to be able to make a run in March, a team that I really like in terms of their overall just camaraderie. I think that they're going to be able to build some momentum here moving forward. It's Gonzaga. I recognize that they're playing out there in the WCC, but This year they get to play against Oregon State and also Washington State. So it's a little bit of a better conference schedule than we've seen in the past for them. I wish they still had that Kentucky game, much like they had last year. I thought that really built some good momentum for them, but it's a Gonzaga team that's just very veteran laden. They brought back darn near everyone from a season ago. That's a team that I think could be able to make a run in the NCAA tournament.
Oh, absolutely. That sounds great. I'm waiting for some Zags to get back up there. It's always a fun year when that happens. I'm going to go with UConn to win the Big East at plus 400. It kind of shocked me to see the number on this, and you got to still remember here, you're still dealing with the best coach in college basketball, man. You're still dealing with Danny Hurley. And you have to remember that Liam McNeely's been out since this whole year now, but he's going to be back. It was an ankle sprain. He might be back by this weekend, maybe next week. I didn't get a full report because you never do in college basketball. But I really believe that this is the time where they're going to sink their teeth in and start winning. If you remember, they only have one Big East loss, and that was to Villanova on the road. Without McNeely. So I think this team is live at 4-1 to win the regular season, Greg.
Yep, I think that with UConn, with only one loss coming into the Continental 48 United States, the games out there in Hawaii did not necessarily go their way. I do think that this is going to be a team that rounds into form. You mentioned it with Hurley, and this is still a team that they flow really good, clean offense. As Hassan Diarra hasn't given you a lot of scoring, but he makes sure not to turn the ball over as well. And that NCAA tournament experience, albeit you lose a lot of those main guys from a season ago, but having the guys like Alex Caravan and company, I think that means something when it comes to March.
Absolutely. And Hawaii was the greatest gift to this number because you are not getting 4-1 if Hawaii did not happen. Hawaii happened. We're getting 4-1. I believe we got some value. You know what else is valuable? Following Greg Peterson, getting his great information. Greg, could you let our listeners and viewers know where to find that?
Absolutely. At @GUnit_81 on Twitter/X is the main hub for everything. That's where I post up the Coast to Coast Hoops podcast every single day. You'll be able to catch me on VSIN. You'll be able to catch me with regards to my Twitch stream, which that's at Greg Peterson Sports. I do that about 5 to 6 times a week, taking a look at games just before tip-off where I'm starting to find some value with regards to those line moves that are happening. So we've got all of that. Greg Peterson Sports on Twitch, at @GUnit_81 on the old Twitter/X as well.
Make sure you all check out Greg.